Hello. So this time around, I will be talking about the Wishbone episodes based on The Moonstone by Wilkie Collins and Journey to the West, or Monkey. The version that Wishbone says they are using in the episode by, and I'm going to try to pronounce this correctly, Wu Chung Un. That's the only time I'll try saying it. But apparently, it's a legend that had been around, and it's kind of like with Joan of Arc. There are so many versions. Wishbone chose the Mark Twain version, and Wishbone chose this version of Journey to the West. But first was the Moonstone, which of course the episode is called Moonbone. And Wilkie Collins, one of my favorite fiction writers. Maybe my favorite 19th century fiction writer, although I did just read George Eliot, as I may have mentioned. And I really liked, well, it's only one book, but still. So this, but that means I was particularly excited to have this to look forward to. And as I was watching it, I had, again, this strange deja vu that most of the season 2 Wishbones are not giving me. And it might be a situation where I didn't watch it when it came out, but just like when I started looking into versions of The Legend of Sleepy Hollow and found there was a Wishbone version, I know there was a period before we had all the streaming services that are available. I know there was a period where I would look up adaptations of Wilkie Collins, none of which are the biggest things in the world, but adaptations on YouTube. And so that's why they'd be on YouTube, is because nobody cared about them. And and I know I watched at least one version of the Moonstone. I may have found out that Wishbone did one then and watched it, or it might be that there's another. I swear there's another Wishbone episode where he goes on kind of a burying things mania, and doesn't know where he's burying things. I swear there's another episode like that, but that's one of the things that happens here, and it is attributed to the moon. So Wishbone he sees a thing and he gets this urge to bury it. That's the big premise of the episode. But it is not a Wishbone-focused episode like the other two, or the two that I talked about last time, because it's about Joe and Sam, and mostly Sam, I guess, which is nice because she hasn't had a lot to do. There's a football player in it, Daryl Moose Johnston, and he's visiting it's a real football player making a cameo as himself, I guess, and he's visiting Oakdale, and he says that he's promoting reading by bringing around this display of NFL memorabilia, including a Super Bowl ring. I guess he was on a team that won the Super Bowl. I don't know anything about him. Not like Shelley Duvall. So he comes and he's got the Super Bowl ring, and Sam wants to get a picture. She's a photographer. I still not quite clear on. I guess she's photographer for the Oakdale Chronicle, but I don't know. It seems like she just started being a photographer a couple episodes ago, but whatever. But she wants to take a picture of the ring. It's the nicest thing on display, and he gives her permission to take it out of its case, or its display case, and get a picture of it. And then the ring goes missing, but Sam didn't take it. But she's the only one or she's the last one to handle it, so anybody knows. And you can probably see where this is going. So that's the struggle. Is them figuring out what happened to the ring, because it's on them to figure it out. And I don't know if there's any threat of legal action, or if they believe that, or if the football player believes that the kids stole the ring and is going to press charges, or if he believes that they didn't and it just got lost as a result of their clumsiness. I don't know. I don't go into that, because the point is not that sort of thing. The point is that they track it down, which is getting to the literary portion, the plot of the Moonstone. And interestingly, I didn't know this. I guess I could have figured it out, but I haven't read the Moonstone since fall of 2004, and I would like to read it again. But like so many other things, it is stuck in another part of the state, and I refuse to travel right now. But it all came flooding back as I was watching it, but I didn't know when I first read it that, although again I could have figured it out if I thought about it at all, the Moonstone of the title is a gem, and the story is that it's got something to do with governing the positioning of the moon, and even perhaps certain, like the moon governs people's behavior. At least that is a thing that why lunatic is a word, why werewolves are a thing. The idea that the moon governs people, and this diamond is related to that in some way, and that it is an Indian thing, like a Southeast Asian Indian thing, not like the story of the Deathless Voice, and that there are these Brahmins or priests that are supposed to guard it. Naturally, the story is about how English people stole it and are giving it as a gift to people. And in this case, but what Wishbone points out, which I thought was very interesting, Wishbone points out that Wilkie Collins made that legend up. And I think that's an interesting, because making up legends on behalf of non-white people is a thing that white authors have historically done. And including Wilkie Collins, apparently. And I didn't give a second thought to it when I read it when I was a senior in high school. But Wishbone points it out in the episode. I thought that was noteworthy, which is why I put it in my notes. So the plot involves, the beginning of the plot, Franklin Blake is the character Wishbone plays, and I guess he's some kind of lawyer or solicitor who represents the uncle of Rachel Verinder, I think is the name. Let me just confirm that. No, that's the wrong one. Rachel Verinder, yes. Her uncle dies and leaves her the Moonstone, and Franklin Blake is supposed to bring it to her. And he stays a while in the overnight at the house, because it's Victorian times and it's a big house, the house of somebody who would inherit a giant diamond. And then he wakes up in the morning and the giant diamond has been stolen. And Wishbone also points out that this was among the first, if not the very first, detective novel. 10 years before, or maybe, when was this? The Moonstone, I always get this confused. The Moonstone was 1968, but The Woman in White was 1959. Okay, so The Woman in White came first, and it's not about a detective like The Moonstone is. The Moonstone actually has a named detective, Detective Betteridge? Yes, Betteridge. And whereas The Woman in White is lay people trying to solve a mystery. But The Woman in White is kind of given credit for being the mold for future detective novels, and then The Moonstone, I guess, the first actual detective novel to feature a detective. The detective is called to the scene to investigate, but also everybody else is investigating, trying to figure it out. Because nobody can tell where it is, what could have happened. Nobody is, of course, taking responsibility for it. Some people are hiding things, suggesting guilt, but it turns out they're hiding things on behalf of other people. And I'm not going to reveal the end of The Moonstone, how it works out. So that might be the last I say about it, but because it is a mystery, and it's not like, revealing the end of Tom Sawyer or Oliver Twist, which I don't remember if I did. I will reveal the end of, or maybe I won't reveal the end of Wishbone. Let me see where it gets to. But again, you probably, I will, because I already essentially said it. Because Sam is a photographer and was taking pictures of that whole thing, they develop the pictures, and then they blow up one image of a picture that shows Wishbone took the diamond and buried it. And because he saw the little case that it was in, and he took that case and he buried it. He didn't just take the ring. He buried it in Wanda's yard, but they, of course, dig up all of his holes in Joe's yard first, before getting the idea if we show him something similar to what we showed him, what got him to bury it, something similar to the case that the ring was in, maybe he'll take us to it, and that works. Now, there's another level because they don't find the ring there. There's another level, and that I won't reveal because it's cute. You should watch it. But it is cute, and it lines up with what happens in the Moonstone itself. So that's all I'll say about that one, I think. Except that the Moonstone, they think, I guess it is supposed that the Moonstone has some kind of supernatural power and that there's a curse on it, and that explains some of the peculiar behavior of people in the story. Great novel. I look forward to reading it again. As I was watching the Wishbone version of the story Monkey, Journey to the West, or as Wishbone somewhat appropriately called it, Barking at Buddha, and I'll get to why that's actually a great title, I remembered portions that I had read in American Born Chinese, the graphic novel that I had referenced previously, parts of which were based on the same legend. And I do look forward to one day reading the actual legend. But what really got me, or what I particularly remembered, was there's a part toward the end of what Wishbone adapted where Monkey, who is a monkey, in fact he's the king of monkeys, and wants to be a god. And so at one point he is confronted by Buddha, who is supposed to challenge and humble him. And Buddha holds Monkey in his hand and says, "If you can jump out of my hand, I bet you can't jump out of my hand," is what he says. And Monkey, who has learned to fly, says, "Of course I can jump out of your hand. It's an easy thing." And he jumps as far as he can jump to the ends of the earth. He sees 4 pillars, he marks one of them, and then he jumps back into Buddha's hand, and he says, "I jumped all the way to the end of the earth. I left proof if you want to see it." And Buddha says, "You mean the proof that's there on my finger?" And Monkey looks around, and the marking that he left at the end of the world is on Buddha's finger. And Buddha says, "You never left my hand." And I guess the lesson there is you don't see the bigger picture. You're only concerned with what you can do and what you can be, and not the world around you. So you didn't notice that you never left my hand. So that I recognized from the graphic novel, and then other parts to a lesser degree. But that is the premise of the legend, that Monkey wants to be a god. And so I guess most of the characters are gods. It was very Asian theater in its design. Everybody wearing masks except for Wishbone. People in masks kind of stylistically representing trees. And the whole thing takes place most of it takes place in a version of heaven. So very interesting to look at. The episode, or what the kids are going through, and this was kind of goes, whereas the Moonstone was a nice, actually focusing on members of the trio. I don't even know if David was in it at all, but at least Joe and Sam were featured. Maybe they were getting too old, so that PBS thought we need younger kids to focus on younger kids in order for younger kids who are watching to get anything out of it. I don't know, but that seems like it, because 2 characters that I guess we have seen before. One is Demont's cousin, and the other is the nephew of the guy who runs the sports store. Their names are Jimmy and Marcus, and I don't even remember which one's which, because I'm only just getting to know these people, whereas I already know Joe, Demont, Sam, and David pretty well. But the premise of the episode in Joe's world is Joe's basketball team. I guess they're having an end of the year or end of the season celebration at Pepper Pete's, and also the sporting goods store, I guess. And there's a tradition before they go to that. The team goes to some kind of bluff or cliff or some kind of watering hole where they go swimming, and so that's going on in the background. They're doing all those things in the background while Marcus and Jimmy are trying to be cool. And one of them lies to the other and says that they were invited to go along with the older, cool basketball kids, which is a Wishbone episode from the first season. It happens to Joe. Joe kind of gets in with the older, cool kids and kind of loses his way trying to impress them. And so this is kind of a repeat of that. And Marcus and Jimmy here represent Monkey, who is trying to be more than he is and making a lot of mistakes as a result. And there is also a banquet that gets ruined in the Monkey story, just like it's an end of season banquet that gets ruined in the real life story. So first, and Wishbone, meanwhile, is also kind of following in Monkey's footsteps because he accidentally turns on the TV when left alone in the house at one point, and finds out that a dog rescued a kid by pushing it out of the way of a car, or something like that happened. It's a much bigger dog than Wishbone, but Wishbone decides he wants to be a hero and save a kid's life. And so he spends time with Jimmy and Marcus because they are the young kids who might need protecting. And when Jimmy and Marcus get to the watering hole area, Joe and Sam ask them to watch their stuff, which is not the same as being invited to swim. And it turns out they didn't necessarily know they were going to be there, but they also say watch Wishbone, so Wishbone hangs around with them. Wishbone is disappointed as well. And eventually they leave off that, and so that they want responsibilities. They want, not responsibilities, but they want to do things with / for the cool older kids, and they just don't want to, stick by it. And so later on, Pepper Pete, Sam's dad, asks them to watch the pizza place because he has to go pick up something, and the pizza place is closed, but it would normally be open. So he asks the kids to keep people from going in and thinking it's open. And instead of doing that, they go in, they try to cook the pizzas that have been left out to, I guess, maybe defrost or just wait to be cooked, which are covered in plastic, and they put them in covered with plastic into the pizza oven. Not a good idea. And then they get distracted, things burn, but the place doesn't burn down, but they think they've burnt it down, and they go and hide. So, yeah, not such a great thing. They are found by the uncle. I forget if he's Marcus's uncle or Jimmy's uncle, because I forget if Dumont is Marcus's cousin or Jimmy's cousin, but they're not all related. And yeah, I wish these. And there's only two left, and two small ones left, and then there's the big one. And I hope that it's weird that they're not about Joe, Sam, and David. But again, I don't know if it was a thing where Joe, Sam, and David kind of aged out of being relevant to the audience. But whatever. And the post show was very interesting. It was about building the set and how they had people as peach trees, how they masked everyone, how they created the illusion of heaven with kind of cloudy surroundings that were glowing. It was interesting, and barking at Buddha, because Buddha is the one who ultimately humbles Monkey. That's why that's a great title. So yeah, that's that for those. The last two main episodes are based on Northanger Abbey, which is my favorite Jane Austen novel, and the only one that I really like very much at all. And then the Aeneid, which is an epic poem. This one is Roman, not Greek, like the Odyssey. And it is another of those epic poems. There's the three big epic poems of the ancient Romans / Greeks: the Iliad, the Odyssey, the Aeneid. I don't know which order they were written in. Chances are the Greek ones came first. They are three that I would have read by now if they weren't in another part of the state, and if I were not willing to travel to get them. But I will read them. I finally resolved to read them, and then the world closed. So I look forward to that. Anyway, for now, let's wag another tail.